I said yes to being a judge for another year of SPFBO, or this year, better known as SPFBOX. I'm also secretly hoping that next year, with like XI, it's SPFBOXy. In today's video, I'm going to be going over what SPFBO actually is, how I'll be running my little judging group, and introducing you to my 6 reviewers who have joined my team. This will be my second year as a judge for SPFBO. SPFBO is a self-published fantasy blog-off that is created and hosted by Mark Lawrence. The idea of the competition is to get more eyes on self-published books, which is always amazing in my opinion. This is its 10th year, which means they've helped out a lot of books. It is run in 2 phases. So the first phase, we have 300 books that are submitted into the competition, and they get randomly allocated to 10 different blogs. Each blog then has 30 books that they have to read, review, and pick their finalist of in some sort of way. Each blog can do it slightly differently, just depending on personal preferences. The only real thing that we have to do is pick a finalist at the end of our phase 1. Phase 1 takes 5 months, so we have till the end of October to pick that finalist. And then phase 2 starts, in which all of the 10 bloggers read and review each other's finalist pick, and we have a scoreboard with all the 10 books, and one of those 10 books comes out on top. The important thing to remember is that those 10 books, the one that comes in number 10 is actually 10 out of 300 books, and I think it's a lot of fun to follow along with the competition and to read as many as possible. I found a bunch of new favorites through this competition. Even before I was a judge, I was reading things from it, and I found favorites that were finalists, semi-finalists, and favorites that didn't make it past the first initial stage on a blog. So I hope that you too do decide to follow along and maybe pick up some of these books as we go. I will have a playlist on my channel for every review that my team makes will be in that playlist. But also Mark's blog is the main page for it, is the homepage for SPFBO. He will always be linking things on there as judges come out with things, because there are 10 different blogs. So there's a lot of people to follow, but I hope you give them all a follow. And I'll link Mark's page down below, as well as Zach Argyle has a really good spread of all the covers every single year that really helps me. So I will link that down below. My team is running things the same way I ran things last year. I have 6 people who have signed up underneath me to read my allocation of books. Each person will be reading 10 books. Yes, 10 times 6 equals 60, not 30. I did the math, don't worry. I wanted every book to have 2 chances. So every book goes to 2 bloggers on my team, and at the end of them reading their 10 books, they are picking a semi-finalist for me to read. They have to get their semi-finalists to me by September, so you're definitely going to see some reviews and some videos coming out from all of these creators in the next coming months, like soon, as we pick our semi-finalists, because they're all picking a semi-finalist, and then I'm reading all the semi-finalists and picking a finalist. There's just like a lot of like steps to the reviewing process. Followed along last year, it's the exact same way I ran it last year. I wanted to introduce you all to my team. There are some new faces, but also some returning faces from last year, and I'm really excited about the great group of reviewers I have. I've asked them to say where you can find them on their channels, which will all be linked down below. Any place that they review books, I will have linked in the description bar, so please go check that out and follow them all. I really trust all of their tastes, and I also trust them all to give me honest opinions, which is really important for me when it comes to reviewing. I've also asked them to describe a little bit about their tastes so that you get to know them a little bit, as well as some of their indie favorites that they have already, although I'm hoping we all find new favorites in this year's competition. So I'm just gonna let you all get to watching their videos.
Hi everyone, my name is Mel from Mel Lenore Reads. I love high epic fantasy as well as a little bit of romantasy. I am so happy to be joining Cassidy again for SPFBO 10 or SPFBOX. Some things that I love in fantasy are a good rebellion. I love to see revolution, rebellion, fighting against the man type plot. I love some really good politics, but not just some behind the scenes conniving. I love to see the repercussions and things come to fruition in politics. I love a great character, but I also love a really complex plot and world building. And one of my favorite things to see is a super complex world and magic system, something really unique and something that's not been done before. I typically gravitate away from a cozy fantasy or something that is a little bit more on the humorous side. I tend to like my things a little more dark and stabby, but I'm open to reading and potentially loving anything and everything. Just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of my taste, some of my favorite indie fantasies and previous SPFBO finalist and semi-finalist include The Umbral Storm by Alec Hudson. This is an epic fantasy involving a lot of really cool world building and is a type of progression fantasy which is something that I never knew that I liked until reading it for SPFBO. Obviously, A Touch of Light by Chiego Abdallah. This has that really cool world building that I was telling you about, some interesting politics, and a very unique magic system. We also have my semi-finalist from last year, which is Blood of the Lion. I have the sequel, Mark of the Damned, that I really need to be getting to. This one is obviously an epic fantasy series because it is going to be a 9-book series, and I am anxiously awaiting news on book 3, as well as one that didn't quite make it into SPFBO 10, but I'm hoping will get entered into SPFBO 11, which is Bloodstones by Tori Tekken. This one is involving the idea behind names, and I really enjoyed the world building in this one. And then one of my favorite indies is, of course, Along the Razor's Edge by Rob J. Hayes. Eska is my entire world. Eska is everything. I love the character that is Eska, and of course I love the world building in this one as well. I cannot wait to see what SPFBO 10 has in store for me.
Hello everyone from Cassidy's channel. My name is Grace and I review books over on my YouTube channel that is just called Grace Dion, and I am a fantasy lover, primarily fantasy reader, so I can tell you that I'm really excited to be part of this year's SPFBO competition as part of Cassidy's team. And to be honest, I think that in comparison to a lot of other people, I am relatively new to fully diving headfirst into self-published fantasy and sci-fi, but I do have a little bit of experience in reading it so far. I read all of the SPFBO 9 finalists along with Mel's takeover of reading the finalists, and I had so much fun. And in terms of like what I'm really hoping for and my taste, I am definitely a character-driven girly. I love an epic fantasy, but what I really love is when the writing is great and the characters are great, and if you give me people to care about, I swear I will love your book. Just give me someone to latch onto and root for, and I will have a great time. So I'm really hoping to feel that way about the books that I am reading in the preliminary part of this competition. And I have had a few self-pub favorites in the past that have actually been picked up as traditionally published books, so I don't know if those count for my self-pub favorites, because like we've got Zenlin Ascends, we've got Legends and Lattes, we've got Sword of Kagan, all of which, well, Zenlin Ascends I didn't read when it was self-pub, but all of which have started out as self-pub books. Oh, and we also have Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Cahill. So those are some of my favorites that really stand out, and I also read all of last year's crop of finalists, and my favorites from those were The Wickwire Watch, Master of the Void, and Arrival Most Vile. So I have definitely dipped my toes in all over the self-pub scene, and I'm really excited to get some eyes on some of these early books and to read all of my crop and decide what to give Cassidy as her potential for the finalists. So I am honestly like just raring to go and start reading these books, and I just want to thank Cassidy for having me as part of her team. So that's me, and I will see you guys if you choose to come check out my reviews.
Hi, my name is Deb from DG Reads, and first of all, I'd really like to thank Cassidy for inviting me to come back and be part of her team this year for the 10th iteration of SPFBO. I'm really excited to see what this year's crop of books brings to us. A little bit about me. I have been a book reviewer for quite a few years on Bookstagram, and I have a blog as well. I've more recently started reviewing books on YouTube, and I plan to use all of those platforms to share my thoughts as I start reading the books that I've been assigned to read for Cassidy's team. I can be found at DG_reads for pretty much all of the online bookish places. I'm a reader who picks up a wide variety of genres. I focus mainly on fantasy, thrillers, and horror, but I do pick up pretty much anything. So when it comes to fantasy, I also like a lot of variety in what types of fantasy that I read and enjoy. Things that I look for in particular tend to be a little bit of a darker element, if there's a mystery element, if there's some intrigue there. All of those are buzzwords that will definitely get my attention. I consider myself very much a world-driven reader. My favorite part of fantasy is learning about the world and the magic system and the creatures or peoples who inhabit those worlds. And I think that shows in some of the favorite indie fantasies that I have picked up. Of course, one of my recent favorites was Master of the Void by Wen Raven. This was Cassidy's finalist last year in the SPFBO 9 competition. And this is one I didn't know a lot going in, but the world really drew me in, and you get to learn a lot about the world and the magic and everything else because you're following multiple people and you see the world expand as the story goes on, and I really enjoyed that element of it. And then another one that really comes to mind for me as a recent fantasy favorite is kind of a cheat because it has been traditionally picked up, but it was self-published when I read it, and that is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I love the unique take on dragons in this world, and that's really what drew me into the story. So for this year, I'm really hopeful to find some new surprise favorites. I really look forward to reading them and bringing you my thoughts. Thank you again so much to Cassidy for including me.
Hey guys, my name is Kitty. I run a channel here called Spicy Cats Reads. A little bit about my reading taste. I read a lot of different genres. I read monster romance, fantasy romance. I love a good horror. I love a good sci-fi. I love a good solid fantasy. So I read pretty much anything. I'm willing to try a lot of things. Currently my favorite genre has been monster romance and fantasy romance. I see that there's a lot of paranormal romances in this batch, and I'm so excited about that because I just love me a good paranormal romance. I think they're so fun. Some of my favorite indie pubbed books definitely being Rival Most Vile by R.K. Ashwick, which was in SPFBO 9, and I love that one so much. I definitely think that one's gonna be one of my favorite books of 2024, that it is a male cozy fantasy, and I ate it up. I loved every second of that book. I also really have enjoyed Whispers of the Deep by Emma Hamm, which is another indie pubbed monster romance with mermaids. It's so magical. If you like BioShock, you need to try this out. It's so much fun. So those are some of my favorite indie fantasy books that I've read. I'm so excited to be a part of Cassidy's team, and I can't wait to see what book comes out on top for SPFBO 10.
Hello everyone, my name is Sandra from the channel God of Favorite Things. I'm very excited to give Cassidy another semi-finalist this year. I love fantasy, it's my favorite genre. I love really powerful characters and lots of world building and plots that like have a nice plot twist to them. Some of my favorite self-published fantasy books are The Umber Storm by Alec Hudson and Along the Race's Edge by Robert G. Hayes. Love those two. I should really complete that series. I am planning to this summer. I'm very excited to see what SPFBOX has for us this year, and I'm hoping to read some really great books. Thank you so much to Cassidy for having me, and let's go! Yay!
Hello everybody, my name is Brianna, or Brie, and I am from the channel 4 Paws in a Book. I am so excited to be taking part in the SPFBO once again, and also being a part of Cassidy's team. SPFBO has definitely introduced me to so many great self-published fantasy books, and SPFBO 10 is going to be no different. During SPFBO 8, I read A Touch of Light by Tiago Abdallah, and this book ended up on my favorite books of the year. Not just like self-pub books, but like favorite books of the year. I absolutely loved this. Then in SPFBO 9, I was a part of Cassidy's team, and the book that I chose as a semi-finalist was The Fires of Time by Alexander Wyatt. I love this book. There was so much in-depth world building and character development in here. It was such a good time. And then I read all of the finalists, and my favorite book of SPFBO 9 was definitely The Fall Is All There Is by C.M. Kaplan. I saw myself so represented in this book, even in like just the dialogue and the inner thoughts, and it was so interesting to see neurodivergence portrayed in a high fantasy book the way that this was. I also love a good self-published romantasy. Currently my favorite is Dark Knight Golden Dawn. I won't shut up about this one, it's living rent-free in my head. So I think when it comes to reading fantasy books in general, but specifically for SPFBO, I have a wide variety of things that I enjoy. I love a good cozy story where the characters are really near and dear to the reader's heart, but I also love the epic world building and development that comes with a political high fantasy. I'm really excited to be a part of this team and cannot wait to check out my selection of books. Thank you so much, Cassidy, for asking me to be a part of this again.
I guess I too should tell you a little bit about myself in case you've never been here. I primarily read fantasy, romantasy, and horror on my channel. My buzzwords are often politics, rebellions, discussions on grief, discussions on power corrupting, as well as sibling dynamics. And I mean, who doesn't love a good animal companion story? If there's an animal companion, you've probably got me. When it comes to romantasy, I'm an enemies to lovers girl. I have a whole lot of favorite indie books. I've been reading indie fantasy for 4 years now, I think, and I just can't stop loving them. I had to cut my list down a little bit. I will say probably my all-time favorite indie series is Along the Razor's Edge by Rob J. Hayes. I fell in love with Eska as a main character. Her voice in this is so prominent. I love it so much. This series as a whole is one of my absolute favorites. One that really surprised me was The Swordsman's Lament by G.M. White. This is like a murder mystery set in a fantasy world. It's really short and I had a lot of fun with it. A romantasy I loved was The Serpent on the Wings of Night. This has been picked up traditionally published published now, but I read it when it was indie, and this has such amazing discussions on grief and losing oneself within the series. Absolutely amazing. As well as a reluctant allies to lovers romance. A Touch of Light by Thiago Abdallah. I'm blurbed on the second book, so of course I loved this book. 5 stars. One of my favorites. This is just epic fantasy to a T in my opinion. No hand holding. I loved it, and I thought the griffin magic was really cool. Another one that really shocked me was Small Miracles by Olivia Atwater. This is a fun time romance? I don't know if it's really a romance, but I don't know what else to categorize it. It explores love, grief, and the very last bit of chocolate in this sweet modern fantasy full of wit and heart. Really enjoyed this one. I'm really shocked by how much I enjoyed it. The Umbral Storm by Alec Hudson. This is such a fun, epic style fantasy. The world building feels so fun. It's progression fantasy. It was the first progression fantasy I ever read, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And then Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Schuer is a mortal enemies to monster lover book. It is a reluctant allies to lovers. Again, I really just love the fun banter in this one. I had a lot of fun with it. Also gonna shout out The Bloodstones by Tori Tekken. I really enjoyed this one. Again, another like epic fantasy that I really enjoyed. My taste is a little all over the place, I think. I would also agree with Deb, who said it earlier about herself. I think I'm a world-driven reader. I really love finding a new epic fantasy world and learning all the ins and outs of it. So that's something I really look forward to in stories. I definitely like a little bit more fast-paced in my stories. And I don't know, I do love a good chunky book, which I think not all the judges' teams might agree with me, but I love a long book. I mean, last year my pick was Master of the Void, which is 600 pages long. So sorry, I can't promise that another chunky boy is not coming to you guys this year. I have nothing else to say. I'm just really excited that I have this opportunity to judge again, and I'm really excited about all 6 of my reviewers. I will leave their YouTubes linked down below, as well as Deb's blog, because she does review in both places. Please follow all of them, and again, there'll be a playlist on my channel with all of the content coming from my team. I am very excited to see what this year lends to us, and you can see a list of our full allocation of books on Mark Lawrence's page, but I have a graphic of who went to who. We definitely have an interesting bunch this year, and I'm excited to see what I end up with for semi-finalists. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about SPFBO, I will be leaving the video where I discuss in depth how SPFBO works right here. And I'll also leave a vlog up from last year's competition so you can kind of get a feel of how I run things.